Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for this virtual project tour. Jason Allen here, the concrete pipe guy. I'm the technical resource engineer for Oldcastle Infrastructure in the Mountain West based out of Utah. Now, I've been getting a lot of questions about different applications for our precast products, and the one that I get asked most about is using box culverts for pedestrian tunnels under busy roadways. So one of my favorite projects that Oldcastle has done in recent years is a pedestrian tunnel under a very busy SR-138 that connected two public parks in a city called Stansbury Park located in Tooele County, which is about 30 minutes west of Salt Lake City. Now, I'm very excited to share some information about this project with you and take you on a virtual tour. So with that, let's jump right in. So this is the location of the pedestrian underpass under SR-138. If you look to the north, you can see a lot of development going on, some residents there, but you have this beautiful park with baseball field, tennis courts. It's got pickleball courts. It also has a frisbee golf course. And then on the south of SR-138, you have not only additional residents that want access to that park, but also you've got this beautiful Stansbury Lake. This was a man-made lake constructed in the 1970s, often referred to as the Jewel of Stansbury Park. If you've never been out here, I highly suggest you come out and pay it a visit. It's a beautiful area here in Tooele County, which is just west of Salt Lake. I've been out here and played baseball tournaments with my sons, and just a gorgeous area out here. And so we love to come out and spend some time down here looking at the lake and playing in the park. So highly recommend you come out and pay it a visit.
Gary Horton. I work with WCG. I'm a project manager and an owner with WCG, previously known as WCC. And my role on the project was the project manager, lead designer on this pedestrian underpass for Stansbury Service Agency. If you know anything about the Tooele, Grantsville area, Stansbury area specifically for this, SR-138 is a high-speed road. Average speeds 55, 60 miles per hour. There isn't a traffic signal close by here. There's residences on both sides of the street. There's also a park on one side, and on the other side is access to the lake out there. So the reason they decided for an underpass was simply to provide that safe access for the pedestrians, walkers and stuff like that from one side to the other without slowing down the traffic out on SR-138, because there's a lot of commuters that buzz through in this area, such that there's even sound walls on the back sides of the home. So they really don't foster an ability just to have an at-grade crossing. It is for Stansbury Service Agency. They went and found the funding and hired us to do the design. When we started the design, as you can tell, SR-138 is a UDOT roadway. However, when we went to gather permits for the underpass and get reviews done, UDOT had just finished an agreement with Tooele County with the addition of Mid-Valley Interchange. The SR-138 was transferred from UDOT to Tooele County. So our reviews and permitting ended up going through Tooele County. Although, because it was so new, there was a little bit of UDOT interaction, but in the long run, it is a Tooele County roadway at this point, and so they gave the permitting approval process. We had already gone through UDOT structures and kind of had that plan. Okay. It was a precast, so we had worked with them on the options and kind of what the requirement and specifications we were going to lay out for the contractor. But when we found out it was a Tooele County roadway and they would be owning the roadway, Stansbury Service Agency will still maintain the pedestrian underpass. So it was a combination of those two working together to define the size of it. So the size was able to be a little bit lower or smaller than a UDOT road. Typically, UDOT requires a 14 wide by 10 foot high. With this, we were able to save a little bit of money, reduce a couple of utility conflicts, and go 12 foot wide by 9 foot high. We had gas line conflicts, we had communication line conflicts, power line conflicts. This is where the Stansbury Service Agency was a huge advocate and benefit to the project, because of their relationships between they and Tooele County, worked with each one of the utilities and identified the necessary relocations. We also worked with the service area out there to make some modifications to the storm drain. And we also modified the design to protect the sewer in place, so that could be protected in place in the box culvert. It was pretty deep, so we were able to go over the sewer line. So the other part of this, not only did we go over SR-138 with a good connection, there is a residential street right next to SR-138 in this area. So we ended up extending it underneath that street as well. Fortunate in that effect that that street, we could close that street and completely close it while they built that portion of the project, because the cars could go out and the residences could access it on either side. By continuing it and going through the residential street right next to it, made that extra length. Yeah, on SR-138 for the traffic to work, they had to one lane it. So the contractor did an excellent job of figuring out their traffic control to reduce the length of delay. We ended up putting the specifications, once they start impacting cars out on SR-138, they need to get through there, and I believe it was 11 days. So basically 2 weekends. Hopefully they'd use 2 weekends and just 1 week. And that would be the only requirements for one lane or one way on SR-138 for those roughly 10 days. And they did a great job, and they pounced through there. We gave them 2 different time constraints, one for when they crossed under SR-138, the other one where they crossed on the residential street, which had a little more flexibility because of the access from two different ends. The park on the north side of the street is about 10 to 15 feet lower than SR-138. So going over really wouldn't have been advantageous, because you would have chased it halfway down the park. So the park being on that end, the south end had the lake. So that was a big challenge, to make sure we didn't get so low that we were impacting groundwater, because you knew once you hit the lake level, you're in trouble. But we were able to stay about 5 feet above the lake. So that worked out well from an underpass. Other types of structures were considered. However, the delay to the vehicles along SR-138, the commuting traffic, and the constraints associated with that would have been the prep time, finishing time, cure time would have dragged out those delays into the months. And so to remove that, and because we were able to identify the utilities and relocate those in advance of the construction before they started excavating in the road, it made it advantageous to have a precast get in and get out, and to minimize the disruption to the public. A couple of lessons I think would have been helpful on this project. Knowing that UDOT had transferred jurisdiction to Tooele County, that happened. That wasn't really communicated to the Stansbury Service Agency. They're not a huge agency. Okay. So finding out a way to, I think early in the design, to meet with UDOT again and find out who was signing that. But it literally, from the time we started until the time we went to get the permit, at one point UDOT owned it, and then they didn't. So that created some delays. That, and then talking with the Stansbury Service Agency, we went with the hope that not potholing utilities. And knowing that we think we know where they are, we're pretty confident. I think if we were to do it again, I would have said, let's spend some money during design, identify exactly where those are, and confirm whether or not will be in the way. We had to do a little bit of adjustment on the profile across for the pedestrian underpass, just due to the sewer line. Didn't quite have the protection we thought we would. Not too much. Fortunately, we already relocated the other utilities, but there was a little bit of a dip in the sewer line and stuff like that. I know you'd think manhole to manhole is pretty obvious, but that not quite the case.
I'm Paul Mann with Oldcastle Infrastructure. I'm one of the outside sales guys. My role on this particular project with Stansbury Park on this pedestrian underpass was, merely just to kind of be there as a mentor and help them with the installation process. If they had questions as to how things should go together, lining up, making sure that everything was graded nicely for these boxes to go on the ground, and really more or less just quality control. So the manufacturing process took about 2 months total. There was 26 pieces. Each box was 12 feet wide by 9 feet high and a 6-foot lay length. So it was roughly 160 feet in length total to go underneath that Highway 138. Each box weighed about 44,000 pounds. So 26 pieces at 44,000 is about 572 tons of material that went into the ground. The process to construct these took about 2 months. We would do, about one a day. So, and I wouldn't say one a day, but one every couple of days, really. By the time you set up the form and pour the concrete and then let them cure and then strip the form off of the box culvert and, set them out to basically cure. Just wait for that piece to be ready to deliver to the site. So production started in, I'm going to say it was fall of 2019. The project actually started, it was a little bit delayed because of utilities that were already in the ground that they had to, take into consideration to kind of work around. So installation actually started in June of 2020. It was a little bit behind schedule, but once it started, the whole project for all 26 pieces took about a month to install. And the way that worked, they would do about 5 to 7 pieces at a time. So once they set those pieces, they would have to, of course, remove a certain piece of the roadway, do traffic control, and set 7 pieces, and then get those all set back into place, repave that section of road, open another piece back up. So over about 3 or 4 weeks time period, we got all 26 of those pieces set in the ground. Okay. There was quite a bit they needed to do on their end, being it was going under a major highway there out in Stansbury Park. So traffic control is a big thing. We didn't want to have this highway shut down for an extended period of time. So they had to, be very precise with, excavating each section of that roadway out, making sure all their grading in the ground and everything, their beddings and everything were right, so that as soon as we put boxes on a truck and sent them out, they were ready to go on the ground, so that we weren't holding up traffic too much. Mm-hmm. I guess is the best scenario there. So it was quite a process. And with the utilities that were already in the ground, they had to work around. We had to get a little bit creative, work with the city on that type of thing, and overall it went pretty smooth.
That's awesome.
It was a great project. We had the space to stage them, but it was not planned that way. We had it designed so that when our trucks left the plant, we had 1 box per truck, and we spaced those about 30 to 45 minutes apart, so that when one truck showed up on site, the crane offloaded that material, set it in the ground, that truck driver was pulling out at about the same time another truck was pulling in. And about an hour's to an hour and a half's time per box is how it played out. It would take a full day's time to set, whether it was 5 or 7 boxes. It usually took about a day to set all of those individual pieces in the ground. So then by the time they got everything sealed, they got those boxes wrapped, for groundwater and that type of thing, so they didn't have any seepage coming in, got them grouted, got everything backfilled, the road repaved, reopened, moved on to the next one. We were doing these in about 1 week intervals. Mm-hmm. with each section that we did. Okay. Yeah, precast was chosen because of the simplicity of that particular structure going in the ground and downtime as far as that road being shut down. We wanted to avoid shutdown times on Highway 138 because it's a main thoroughfare through the city right there. So to do precast, we were able to cut down on that shutdown time for the road and make it as easy for all the residents out there as we could, as far as traveling back and forth east and west on that particular highway. So there were other options that were considered, and it was really chosen precast because of that nature, just for downtime and not having the road shut down for an extended period of time.
Well, let's take a tour of this project, shall we? So right now I'm standing on the boat dock of Stansbury Lake. So this is on the south side of SR-138. and you can see all the houses around there. This boat dock is really cool. It's accessed off of that roadway that both Paul and Gary had mentioned. It's Delgado Lane, which is the residential street here that they also had to go under, and so trucks can come in, back their boat in, unload, and then leave. Great area here. So notice the sound wall that is blocking Delgado Lane from SR-138. It's very high traffic, a lot of heavy trucks, and so that sound wall does a really good job of blocking out the noise for the residents here along this corridor. So this is a nice view of the lake as we start making our way down the trail leading down to the tunnel. One of the concerns was obviously safety, so the Stansbury Park Service Agency put this black chain link fence here to protect people from just falling over the edge there when they're just walking around in this area. It's a nice little picnic area up there for the lake, and so they wanted to make it a nice, inviting area for everybody. As I spoke to the contractor as we come up to this speed bump here, the contractor mentioned that this was not part of the original construction, but the service agency came in after the fact to put in some of these safety precautions. As you notice, there's a mirror there that you can look around the corner. The mirror was vandalized a couple of weeks ago, so they're working to get that replaced. And here's another speed bump. There was some concerns with cyclists coming down this really fast, and so they wanted to make sure that they could protect against that. Again, as we look up top here, here's the fence, just to make sure that people aren't, wandering and falling into this tunnel area here. So it was a big safety precaution. Notice the rock wall there. I'll talk about that in a moment. These lights, they obviously wanted to keep it well lit and illuminated at nighttime, and so these lights are on a timer that they'll turn on during the night. One of the unique characteristics about this project, you could see the sidewalk chalk graffiti that's on the wall there. This box culvert was lined with anti-graffiti spray, and so the spray paint won't stick to it. And also the rock wall itself, those rocks that were leading up in the retaining wall, those were sprayed with it also, so it minimizes the amount of cleanup you have to do if someone comes in with spray cans. It won't adhere to the side. So as we're walking out to the other side here of the tunnel, you could see the park that's on the north side of SR-138. This is the drainage area that this collects all of any runoff or any water that gets in the tunnel and also comes from the park side. It's caught here in this little cross drain that is the low point there, and it runs to the north here to this little catch basin. And then this catch basin ties into the storm drain system in the park. So they've got their riprap there to collect any of the runoff or anything from this trail and the park there. So we'll do a nice little view of this park. Beautiful park. As I mentioned, it's got the frisbee golf. Here's one of the goals for that. You've also got your pickleball courts here. There's a baseball field to the north. And as we pan back, we can again see the sound wall on this side of the tunnel. So beautiful project, very well done. It turned out great. Well, thank you everyone for attending this virtual project tour. I want to thank all those that were involved in helping make this video. I want to thank Gary from WCG and Paul from Oldcastle Infrastructure for taking their time to share their lessons learned and talk about the project with us. Also want to give a shout out to Stapp Construction, who did a great job installing this project. Had a lot of unique issues and concerns that had to be worked through in design and construction, and so big shout out to all of them. For more information about this project or other unique uses of Oldcastle products, please email me at jason.allen@oldcastle.com or visit oldcastleinfrastructure.com.